Continuing our trend of talking about the total failure of the human race to be a decent species, we're going to talk about Facebook giving information about a girl's planned abortion in order for her to be prosecuted. Today's fairly depressing, not so critical update.
Yeah, this is a terrible, terrible story. And the coverage of it is kind of all over the place. Right now, it's this whole "I told you so" because Roe versus Wade was overturned. Everybody said this is exactly what's going to happen, and here it's happening. When I started looking into it, it's on the surface appeared to be a little bit more complicated than that. When they finally got a hold of Facebook, so basically what happened is Facebook received a warrant to turn over information about this girl's phone because police were investigating her. They turned everything over for all of her personal information from WhatsApp and Facebook, and it was used to prosecute her because she had an abortion. But the complicating factor is she also burned and buried the body illegally. So when Facebook received the warrant, they said they received the warrant in June prior to the Supreme Court decision, and that there was no mention of abortion. They claimed that they were investigating the case of a stillborn baby who was buried and burned and buried. So when I saw that, I thought, well, maybe it's kind of being taken out of context, except it's totally not, because the investigating officer, McBride, said his investigation started when he learned that the mother and daughter had buried a child after claiming the baby was stillborn. He immediately sought medical records to find out when Celeste miscarried. So, and Facebook turned over the information. Terrible, terrible, terrible story. She's in jail now. Maybe she's out. I think she actually got out on bail and is awaiting her trial. But fuck.
Yeah.
So she thought that she could cover up the abortion by saying it was a stillborn.
Correct.
That really sucks.
Yeah. I genuinely don't want to talk about this. I don't want to have any kind of commentary on this. It's such a horrible situation. The whole thing in the US with the abortion rights at the moment is so like far. It feels like it shouldn't be happening, like a kind of movie script or something. It's just so wrong in so many ways, and like the fact that most of the population of America don't support it. The fact that it's kind of so impossible to undo. The fact that the women's rights are just being trampled over. And this is like, you have naysayers that talk about, oh, this and this could happen. And now here it is, it's happening. And Facebook are complicit in like making it happen, helping it happen.
And
the worst.
They're complying with a legal warrant.
Exactly,
but this is the argument that you guys are always making, which is that if you're dealing with an authoritarian government, privacy protections are important for exactly these kinds of cases. Maybe I imagined we were farther away from that in the US. But yeah, this is terrible.
I think a government is always pushing the limit on what is okay and what isn't, right? And this goes for even privacy conscious governments that do things like in the EU, where they'll protect you as long as they're also allowed to monitor you, right? They'll protect you from Facebook and from Google and from Amazon, but they're never going to protect you from themselves. That, of course, that's out of the question. And they'll always push the line and inch towards a terrible, terrible future because they want to see they're testing the waters. And if you do it slowly and surely, it's not really going to get noticed, right? We might notice it. We might notice hey, all the examples we've been making is... No, I wasn't finished, Peter, but go ahead.
I don't know if you mentioned the EU just to get me ranty, but I don't agree with you about the EU as a whole, right?
The EU's the EU's the biggest, one of the biggest offenders of this.
I don't agree at all. I just don't agree.
So you mean like your 1 million CCTV cameras in London alone that monitor every single citizen all the time? That's not an issue?
Well, you could say that's not a problem with the EU. That's a problem with specific countries.
Netherlands does it.
Yeah,
all the European
exactly.
countries do this. Just because London was at the time part of the EU and the biggest, but this is still under EU.
But even countries within the EU doing that individually,
they all do it.
But the
well,
what's the distinction? You can probably speak more clearly to it.
So in countries like the US and the UK, everything's very polarized, and there's a kind of there's the the two sides. It's like a two-party system pretty much everywhere. The EU is a collection of 27 countries, which all have a kind of a collective consciousness, which contribute towards this kind of stuff.
A hive mind, if you will.
A hive mind, yeah. Let's go sci-fi. I like it, and I think that is the thing that gives me the faith that the EU is acting towards people's interests rather than a particular party's interest or a particular country's interest or any one direction. It's actually they have people's interests at heart. There are definitely factors inside the EU and parties inside the EU and people that have their own agendas, but because of the fact that there's so many places put together, and there's not like, I think one of the good things about the American legal system is the US, the federal and the state level stuff, which is good in theory, but it does end up with the fact that you have, the Republicans versus the Democrats, and that's the two sides of the coin. Anyway, I could go on about this, but we could do a whole lot.
Yeah. I guess my point was that governments will push and push and push until something like this happens. And then, because as you recall, Mike, and you admitted this, the first thing you did was you didn't believe that this could happen in Western free countries because it didn't make sense. Like it didn't add up. Why would they? And like, well, here they are. And like, this isn't the first example. This is just, I guess, the one where we could clearly see the damage that's being done. Now, did this daughter and mother commit a crime? Maybe, in terms of burning and burying the body illegally, but they shouldn't have to have done that.
Yeah, why did they do that? There's the only reason they did, it wasn't just for fun. It was because they didn't want to get prosecuted.
They didn't want to get prosecuted for what should be a woman's right, which obviously everyone here could say and agree. Now we're going a little bit political, but that doesn't fucking matter because this is a woman's right. It's her body and their body, and we don't have a fucking say what they can or cannot do.
If that's political, then okay, we're political, fine, whatever.
There is a line that I think that we can all agree on that we will cross on this show, and this is one of those rare lines.
So from the article, she was charged with 5 crimes, 3 felonies, including perform or attempt an abortion after 20 weeks, which is the threshold in Nebraska. She was at 23 weeks. Perform an abortion by a non-licensed doctor, which she also did, but related to the abortion. And then the one that we probably have less dispute over is removing, concealing a dead human body. However, that's only kind of a consequence of the other 2 in the legal situation.
Mitigating circumstances, I would say.
So from a privacy standpoint, reading this story, I still would say I have less of a problem with Facebook having this information than with the government being able to get it.
Yeah, I mean, that conversation is going to exist somewhere, and I suppose you could use Signal or something like that, and a privacy focused messaging system to sort out the details. But yeah, okay, I can understand that she used what was available to her and what she understood to be able to talk to people about it. What fucks me off about this is that Facebook are quite capable of fighting against this kind of thing, or doing something, making a big lobbying against this, but they're hiding behind this. Oh well, just complying with legal requests.
Well, slightly more than that. They also said that there, and they could have been more So they received the warrant before Roe versus Wade was
Yeah.
overturned, and abortion. It wasn't like they didn't mention that it was about the abortion. According to Facebook, the warrant was about the disposal of the body.
I don't know.
So if there's a
But-
case where they know it's somebody investigating an abortion, will they push back then? I don't know. I guess I would probably be surprised if they did.
Yeah, I guess so
Right.
too.
The Facebook isn't known to push back
Yeah.
subpoenas or push against subpoenas like Glassdoor, who fight for this kind of thing in court. Not that I'm a fan of Glassdoor, just saying that there's a clear example of someone, an entity, an organization that will that will go to court for individuals. Will Facebook go to court? No, they'll provide the papers. They have a fucking portal for law enforcement to submit this kind of document request. So no, there's no like, I don't even think there's a hint of a silver lining here. I don't want Facebook to have this data to begin with. It's not about that the government can or cannot retrieve it. The fact that Facebook is storing it is a huge problem to begin with, because just because a government can legally get it or can't legally get it doesn't mean that they won't get it anyway, right? We can look at when was it, 2005 AT&T, was it the AT&T cables? I don't remember, where the NSA were plugged straight into an AT&T server farm. They were monitoring every call, every text message, unfiltered, unencrypted, just everything. It's not going to stop them.
Actually, that's a good point. I should say that Facebook should implement end-to-end encryption. They should probably just tack on WhatsApp on top of Facebook Messenger or something like that, like convert it over. And it's another argument for why end-to-end encryption is so important. And, you know, I hate being right about this.
Right.
But it matters. It sucks that we have to get to this state, to this point, for it to be obvious that it's important.
If it's not a silver line, what happened to this girl is terrible.
Yeah.
If there's a positive outcome from this, it's the attention it's getting. I guess I'm still less focused on the privacy side than on the political side, but hopefully, this is exactly what everybody was afraid of. Here's a example within months of it becoming possible. And I'm not even, I don't know, a little fuck Facebook, but a huge fuck Nebraska.
Yeah.
Big time.
Fuck Facebook and fuck Nebraska.